know. I should know better.
Everybody does it. Don't worry. You're all set. Now you're live, and I will call Lucille.
Okay, thank you so much. So, okay, so welcome everybody to the November meeting of the Oneonta Environmental Board. So we do not have a quorum just yet. So no, we don't.
2, 3, 4. Gina makes number 4. Isn't that a quorum? 1 over 7.
I don't count, and Mark doesn't count.
Pardon? No, Mark. No, but we got Tracy and Gina.
Kevin, you count.
Oh, I do count. So we do have a quorum.
Oh, absolutely.
4, yeah.
Oh, okay. Woo. All right. So we do have a quorum. So with that in mind, let me share everything. 1 second. So I got to find. So let's start. So we'll call the meeting at 7:10. Got to look for it. Here we go. So we have a couple of things to do. Here is. No. Oh, right. Because just zoom. All right. So here we go. So these are. Whoops. That is supposed to be September 9th up there. So these are the minutes from September 9th. And so apparently I can't spell or look at little red squiggly lines. That's embarrassing. Any other things that need to be fixed on here?
Kevin Joan Fox, her name is not there.
She wasn't there that day.
Okay.
We accept the minutes of September 9th.
Well, hold on. What were you saying, Mark?
Well, what you can do is have right below absent, just so that she's noted that she is still on the environmental board at that particular time.
Whoops. I love typing in front of everybody.
I would never do that.
All right. So thank you, Mark, for that. I'll try to remember that in the future. Okay. Is there any hearing no other comments? Do I get a
I move
motion?
We pass the minutes.
So Dave, you have that, and do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. So I don't think I necessarily need this, but okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, aye. So all in favor. So we have 4 people saying aye. No, any dissensions? Didn't think so. Any abstentions? Nope. All right. So thank you very much. So moving on to the next one. Let's see. I kind of wish Zoom, when you did the share, would show like more, because everything says minutes from 2020 and then everything else gets cut off. So it's a little hard for me to see. Okay, so I should be sharing, although my screen doesn't show it there. Here we go. Here are the minutes from this meeting. That was the last meeting. And so let's see. Tracy was not. Okay. And Lucille Wiggins. And at that point, yes. And Gina.
Joan was still on the board, wasn't she?
She was present there.
Oh, gotcha.
So there we go. So those were who were there. Quorum was not meant. So here are what I have for that. There's not a whole lot to write down.
Didn't we have 4? I come back up to the top. I thought we had 4.
Nope.
1, 2, 3, 4 were present. That's a quorum. Schultz, Hutchison, Fox, and Davies. No, Davies is not. Sorry.
Yeah, there was only 3.
Scratch that.
That's why we couldn't do anything. Otherwise, we would have.
Okay. My mistake. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, look, things happen. It is not a problem. I wouldn't worry about it at all. So, um, do I have any other comments? And if not, do I hear a motion?
So move as corrected, I guess, or did you have to correct anything?
I just added the absent members. I didn't
I
make
move
any.
we accept the minutes. That was there.
Yep.
Second.
Okay, Gina seconds. All in favor of accepting the minutes from October 14th, 2020, say aye.
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 Anybody abstain? Okay. And any nays? Okay. Hearing none, the minutes have been passed. Thank you. All right. So, new share. Let's look at the agenda. Maybe I should have done this first. Oh well. What are you going to do? All right. So, I will. Oh, and there's Lucille. Yes, welcome. Oh, we're still waiting for her to connect her audio. Well, we're still waiting there, Lucille. Just hold on 1 second. Okay. Oh, nope, you're muted, Lucille. Hold on. Carrie, am I still?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go.
Finally.
Okay,
Thank
fantastic.
Gina.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Lucille. It's good seeing you, Lucille.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Finally.
Yeah. So we had a quorum, so we went ahead and we voted on the acceptance of the minutes, and we are just beginning to look at the agenda. So are there any petitioners, Carrie, in the?
There's
Doesn't, I doubt it.
I don't think so.
No.
Nope. Okay. I think we have some people watching to see if they want to join us in the future. So let's see. So we have no petitioners. I did not receive any correspondence that was pertinent, or even any really correspondence at all. So that brings us to the Mark. What do you have for us?
Thanks, Kevin. Well, actually, today I have some good news. In the past couple of meetings, I've said to you, well, there's not a whole lot to report because we've been so focused on COVID and on budget, and that certainly has been the case. So this is budget related. But before I kind of give you the news, let me set the context here. The city, based on our kind of normal budgeting, was facing about a $1.3 million deficit for next year because our revenues have not kept up with the normal business of the city. So the folks in the finance office have done a tremendous amount of work to figure out where we could shave off money without certainly sacrificing the services that the city offers. And so that's been accomplished. So, but what's kind of exciting is given that really tight budget situation, given how narrow things are, in this budget for 2021, which was approved by the council on this past Tuesday, and is going to be going into a kind of having an open public hearing on the 24th, and then the mayor then will vote it into to existence, if you will, December 1st. But in that budget, there is $16,000 for new trees.
Wow.
There's also $20,000 for tree and stump removal. And I
24 for what?
20,000 20 for tree and stump removal, kind of addressing some of our aging trees in terms of also some of the work that needs to be done to our aging urban forest. I also want to just kind of put this out there. I think this really comes as a real statement that the city recognizes the value that the urban forest, the value of the urban forest to our quality of life. And is continuing to invest in it and is continuing to try to support it. Now, that said, maybe the argument could be that it should be more, but frankly, to have $36,000 total dedicated to our urban forest in a time when we are really looking for where to shave off, dollars here and dollars there, it's quite a statement. So I think it's certainly the fine work on many of the people on this board to have been able to place it at a very high level in terms of the city's mind. And so I was really happy to see that. So there was not much, I didn't make anything. It was already in there. I didn't have to make an argument for it. So I think that shows you how much people were very supportive of that effort. So I think it was good news. And so that's even in a lean
Greg
budget.
Mattias must have been the main supporter of that, I would assume, right? Greg Mattias probably, because it's not his engineering budget. Yeah.
I think, everybody within the city in terms
Wonderful.
of the folks recognize the value, and that's why it was put in there as a line item from the start. So it was good to see that it was there.
Good. Thank you.
Great. Fantastic.
That's all I have to report.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that is really good news. It is, and it's certainly, that's actually, Mark, that's 2 months now where you've had good news. Remember last month you told us about the hiring of the GIS person, or at least the approval for the hiring of a GIS person.
I believe that person's been hired now. Yes.
That's what I thought. There was just so much silence. I thought maybe I screwed up.
No, I just had the mute button still on.
So that's two months in a row you've had something that's been good for us.
I can go back to the regular COVID conversations here.
No, that just has gotten worse over the months. So we don't need that. All right.
Well, the forester could actually start inputting information into the GIS with regard to what trees we have, what needed to be cut. Maybe that was the plan and I just missed out on that, but that would make sense. We did that about 10 years ago. We had somebody work on a project like that for the city.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the things that we talked about last time when we heard the news, was that was probably one of the things that would be asked, is to renew the inventory, and then of course tie that into a mapping.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I think that might be a bit down the road, because there's some kind of infrastructure related mapping that really needs to take place first, because we really, we have an aging infrastructure that needs to be addressed, that we are addressing and kind of small bits, because of course it's quite expensive to do that. So next year, I think starting in the early spring, West Street from Chestnut up to Center will be addressed. And if you can think about that and driving that, you could probably still feel the pain in your back from all the jarring kind of breaks in the concrete. So we'll be redoing the waste, the water, everything throughout there, and then all new, putting an all new bed there. So that's quite a costly project. So that's kind of one example of trying to address some of the aging infrastructure. Gina.
She's got to turn her
Yeah,
mic
you're muted.
on.
Hi, Lucille.
She's got to unmute her mic.
Yep, thank you. I was trying to be quiet there, too quiet. So if the trees are in the next year's budget for new trees, not sure if that would be for plantings in the fall, but to renew our little bit of discussion about equity and the fact that urban forest is also about not just places where we have great trees and preserving those neighborhoods, but also trying to provide treescape, cooling, and all those benefits to those who live in other parts of the city. And so if this is the west side, west end, then maybe again, that's a good dovetailing with the work that gets done, but some consideration again about the distribution of the benefits of these trees, both the ones that Dave's talked about and the new ones.
Yeah. We have done a lot in the 6th Ward way back. I think I might have mentioned this when Dick Decor wrote up and we received money from the DOT. We had to specify that we were going to be in low income areas, and we did a lot in the 6th Ward down on River Street, etc. But no, the West End, yeah, then some of the problem comes in is the width of the median, etc., etc. But no, I agree. There's several streets up there. And I have my eye on them, but no, that's a good idea, and push. Keep us tuned into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark, if you could, forward that along, perhaps that would be a big help. Gina, were you going to say something? Yeah.
Clarification, do the trees need to be on city median, or can they be adopted on a private land that needs?
Absolutely. No, when Dick Miller became mayor, it started then. He said, why not? Prior to that time, the city said never put it on private property. So the answer to your question is absolutely. The owner has to sign a document that says they will not destroy the tree for 2 years. And after that, they are 100% owner of the tree. And the city basically never wants to deal with the tree again anymore. They don't get stuck removing it in 50 years, you know. So no, absolutely. And we have, I can give you, if you yourself know people and want to get their signatures, you really, all of these people who've done this are on file in the clerk's office. They have a file of all the people that have signed. So frankly, after 2 years, the document is meaningless. But anyhow,
Right. Now that's a fantastic idea, because I'm thinking along my street where there's not any median.
let me know. Let me know.
That's
You do that. You both live in the West End, do you?
no, I live on Pine Street, so
That you can't put them on Pine, though, can you? So
no. Well, if you put it on property, sometimes.
if they're, yeah, I'd love to.
But I mean, I just had to cut down 3, so. But anyway, so they were going to fall. All right, so excellent. So and that is important to keep in mind, that we want to make sure that there is this equity. That is the importance of urban forestry, is to bring back.
Yeah, and thank you for your comments, and I'll certainly bring those back. But I do think that Greg Mattice, the city engineer, will certainly be working closely with this board to try to,
Yes.
as he has in the past, identify sites, and frankly, he's always relied upon, and this has been one of the nice things that this board has brought to the table is the the people power to put some of these particular trees into the ground. So I think that will be the same thing, especially as we're trying to figure out ways to cut corners. If we don't have to have city staff putting these in the ground and we can get volunteers, that always makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. A couple
Good.
of
Thanks,
people,
everyone.
Fred said that he was seeking the trees that we could get from over in Schoharie Nursery over there. And I haven't spoken with him lately, but I'll make sure he's aware of this so that we can start looking at species we might want. Or if you have particular species you guys want, I have my own favorites, but
Well, let's wait till December 1st when this thing is all final before we.
all right.
But no, it's a good thing to start thinking about that now. Absolutely. All right, so we'll move on to committee reports, and I think this section, I think, of our agenda will need to kind of move around a little bit. We might want to think about exactly what this is going to look like going forward. We're going to have a bunch of hopefully new members, which we'll get to in a little bit soon. And so maybe they'll want to take up the community gardens, but with Kim having resigned from the committee, there is not a liaison with the community gardens. I'm going to leave it on for right now, but we might want to rethink what we're doing on that. Same goes with Oneonta 2030 and the climate smart communities. Right now, the climate smart task force is not met yet. I'm going to send out an email and see if we can start moving on that. Other than that, I think we need to go back and look at the Oneonta 2030 document, as we said before. Start making comments. I haven't seen any comments in there as of 2 weeks ago. I think Gina sent out something that she had wanted to talk about. And if anybody's got raising their hand, I probably can't see you because I have to look at my documents as well in my minutes as I walk. So I know Gina's always very polite and has her hand up, so just stop me from talking. Yes.
I expressed some interest in the transportation component.
Oh, right. Yes. So in what way? What were you?
I can't recall off the top of my head the document. Sorry.
No. I mean, just in general, what kind of
Yes.
Transportation? What like the buses, the city? What in particular kind of are you just thinking about transportation issues?
Yeah. So in terms of energy transition, we're also looking to move both to potentially different kinds of buses over time, local fleets, again, electric vehicles, and the the new infrastructure that's coming out of the state plan related to clean transportation.
Mhm.
But more broadly, how we could also think about mobility and pedestrian interactions with transportation. That's something we talked about before. Smarter and safer cities sort of angle as well. So the transportation planning in the sense of looking forward. But again, leveraging a little bit what we're doing over on energy.
Right. Okay. I think that's an absolutely a really good place to start. My feeling on that is that maybe this is something that we might want to spend next couple of months looking at and thinking about, so that when the next budget cycle comes around, we might be a little bit more prepared. Um, it is something that certainly with bus contracts and things like that, and purchasing of new city vehicles, that might be something that would be easier for us to get to make some changes in. We've got nice urban forestry is taken care of for a little bit, it looks like.
For a year, 1 year.
Well, that's 1 year more than we had. So, and trees last a long time. So that is kind of where I'm thinking we might want to spend some effort on. We don't have to be solely on that when we're thinking about Oneonta 2030, but I think maybe since Gina, that was the first one that kind of came to mind. You're the first one to speak up. I say let's run with it. It also makes, I think, a lot of sense. Does anybody have any?
I think I saw a brand new bus today that I had never seen before in the Oneonta public transit. I don't know if that's who bought it, where, when, why, how, but anyhow, that's one thing. Obviously, we don't get new buses every year, but we've got to plan ahead. And as Gina was saying, hopefully electric,
Yeah, and we can come back. I want to come back to that in new business with what Dave had put forward on the Deed Street lot. So when we get to that, we can circle back to some of those ideas. Yes, Gina.
Mark or others, does anybody know if there are current efforts for pedestrian safety measures? Some of the things we've done up on campus reflect these new changes. And so I wondered if the city was also embracing any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it was the environmental board about 2 years ago that brought it forward to the city. It's the what's it, smart streets. Is that
right?
I think I'm coming up the wrong name, but and that has been adopted by council, so that it's part of the thinking that the engineering office puts forward in any type of street project. So, for example, West Street will certainly have that that kind of thinking. There is a bike lane that will be going in along Main Street from roughly just a little bit past the post office down towards the east end. So that's been part of the thinking. And the mayor has asked that, that is very interested in having me can liaison with this board in terms of that we are kind of the gatekeepers and the thinkers about this, to kind of keep on bringing the kind of issues forward and kind of keeping that at our forefront of our thinking. So that was something I think I brought forward to you all. I forget, maybe it was pre-pandemic, but that was certainly interest of the mayor that this board continue to think about that and focus on those types of actions and bring suggestions forward, and we'll continue to be vigilant about that.
Tracy, I saw you came off mute. So,
Yeah, just quick question, Mark. Do you know the success of that? I mean, I know that the rule was, I think, something along the lines, if a street was going to be reworked, we would, the consideration to put in the bike lane would be a part of the plan. And I think the Main Street is an example where it was a success. Do you know, have we been successful anywhere else? Or I actually don't have any clue.
Yeah, I think Main Street's the first example because we did all that work. I think one of the challenges is also that some of our roads are narrower.
That's right.
So it is difficult sometimes to get the required bike lane width as well as the driving lane width. But I think that that's certainly part of the thinking in the projects. There's as part of this kind of before this, but kind of as part of the whole effort, there was the effort to try to mark bike lanes throughout the city. So those are all pretty now well marked, and areas where kids might be riding their bicycles to school. So that was the start of a lot of it as well. So it's even that level of thinking. And then I know that there's certainly been plans or proposals to try to think about Lettuce Highway in terms of
Yeah.
making that a little bit more pedestrian friendly.
They put up new signs.
Yep. And there's clearly a lot of, that's a big project, but I know that that's been an active thinking in terms of the grant office has been looking at some different grants that might be able to support creating some upgrades there. So I don't know the status of those, but it's definitely part of the thinking. It's just clearly some projects allow for it and some projects we just simply can't.
Yeah.
Let me just,
There's been quite a bit of work done on some of the roads throughout the city. And I was just wondered if that was a part of the logic, but the reality is in many of these roads, like you said, there's no real possibility of putting a bike lane in there. It's just too narrow.
Right.
Or you take away everybody's parking.
Right.
yeah,
So-
West Street would be great if it could happen, because that's a good, I mean, people do bike out that way. Quite a few people bike out that way, but it's pretty tough to bike. The kicker is then you can't have legal parking on the same street that you have the bike lane in. That's one of the big kickers for it.
And that creates a challenge, especially since we have certainly a lot of rentals within the city and people rely upon parking on the city streets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the kind of alternative is beginning to look for routes that people can ride their bicycles a little more safely. So I think it's kind of a holistic approach, and hopefully as we keep moving forward and projects keep moving forward, this will certainly be part of our thinking.
Good.
Excellent.
The lettuce highway is so important for safety, but also to try to think about better access to the river, which is a gem, really, and again, connected to our mission to promote the environmental resources and access to them. So for safety, again, some more barriers to really separate people and bikes from cars. Things that other cities are doing. I know that it takes a real money, but over the next 5 to 10 years, we could do so much more with lettuce and connect.
I would like to throw in an idea that we've talked about for quite a while. There's a very nice way to walk the south side if you go through Catella Park. You all know where Catella Park is. It's that park underneath. You go underneath Lettuce Highway, and there are trees in there. You can walk in there. It's not noisy. DOT did give the city permission to put a gate at the end. They have stoplights on there. From the people coming off of I-88, you go underneath the bridge, underneath the stoplights on the other side, and then you get out to what's called the New Island area there, and that would be a great recreation area. I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's already been done. The things we're talking about, the safety, the kicker is there's a broken fence on the other side, and most people go through that broken fence, but even then they do have a stoplight for pedestrians to get across. So there have been improvements, but I'm trying to encourage people it's so much more pleasant to walk out and come back in that park, Catella Park. Now you still cross the river and you got a bridge, and when you cross the bridge going to south side, the river, they're going over the Susquehanna. Once you cross that bridge, you're kind of on your own. But from that section north to the city, I have talked to people. I've talked to the woman that's in charge out there in the mall, and she thought it was a good idea. The good old days when people were out there and stuff. And
so this is that part that is by all the fields, right?
Yeah, you go under. Promise me between now and the next meeting, you'll walk.
Yeah, no, the little fence comes out right by the overpass for the highway, right?
Correct.
There's that little gate.
On the exit lane from I-88,
Right.
there is a stoplight. And
Yep.
Usually there's not enough traffic to even punch the stoplight, but if you feel like you can punch the
Right. Oh yeah, no, I've gone out that way because when I go to when I hit the trails there, I'll park in back in that field and then walk across. Yes, that is what at the very least would be really nice would be to continue the path along that road and then across the field to that fence, because otherwise it's kind of weird. It's just this big field, and at one end is a gravel little parking lot area, and then there's this fence that's not very well marked. And
If
no matter
you're
what
going to take, if you're going to take a leisurely walk, Dave, that's the way to go. But the people that are cutting through Neowar Park to the break in the fence and then under the I-88, they're on their way to work.
I understand. I understand.
Oh, they're not, they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
And they need to have that way too.
Well, okay. I'm just saying this is a legal way. The other way is not legal. This is legal by the DOT.
Yeah, right. I've been there
Please,
many times.
It's muddier going the other way. I don't want to get a long discussion.
Right. So, well,
Anyhow.
this would be something though to try to go for, to find out whether or not we could make that other path legal, and while at the same time trying to improve signage and get the word out that there is this way to cross through there.
Yeah.
And this also goes to Gina's point about entry into the river from that point, is that there is a tiny little sign saying, oh, here is how you get to New Island Trail. If we
Yeah, well, that came up recently, but Mark.
better signage.
Mark was, the last time I was out there, I met Mark out there. He was biking, I was walking, but there are some very nice
I think
trails.
we all
There's
saw
some-
each other.
There's some that go right by the river. One of the newer trails is a very nice trail right next to the river, which I had not known until a couple of months ago. So it's a lot of possibility out there, but anyhow, the bikers
No,
are it over.
but I would yeah, I would argue that does go into kind of the transportation component as well, because one thing is not just electrification of vehicles, but also and biking, but also making it easier for pedestrians to get from one economic center of the city.
It's so much better. You walking, you don't go up over the bridge. You have it all flat. If you're pushing a baby carriage, it's much easier. I mean, it would be much better if we had a hard circuit for sure. But
To push a
lights
baby
could be
carriage.
put in out there with solar. You know, it could be quite a. It's a little lonely for people at night, I'm sure. But anyhow, okay.
Oh, okay. I've just been told that the Oneonta Susquehanna Greenway Committee is working to get better signage on the trails from Catella to New Island and elsewhere. So thank you, Mike.
And in fact, I was on the Greenway Committee many years ago, and we were trying to connect the Greenway, and that was our stopping spot right there. We could not figure out a way to get over Lettuce Highway onto New Island. We came up with a bunch of plans. We actually had some funding for it. It all fell through because of the expenses that it was going to be. But it would be nice to connect it. New Island is very, very little used. It's a well, you guys know the history. I've actually done a lot of studies on New Island, take my students down there all the time. So it's very little used for what it is. And it would be that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So moving on, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about city plantings right now.
No, I've talked to Eric a couple of times saying, why isn't something happening? You've been given money and a go-ahead. And he says he's been put on half-time or something like that. And then in the spring, the plantings will go in. Well, plantings need a lot of water, and winter is when we get the water. So it's yeah, it's a work in progress, slow and long and slow.
You're talking about
Okay.
the plantings, not the trees so much, right, Lucille?
No, the
this-
plantings on Main Street and
Yeah,
all
the flowers.
all those vacant, nicely fenced in places. Some of them are totally bare now. It's a disgrace.
Of trees, you're saying, right?
No,
No.
Okay, flowers.
not
Okay, yeah.
necessarily trees. No,
Okay,
bushes
flowers.
and things that are like there at where you cross the street and go into the passage over to the parking lot.
Right.
All along Main Street, they've created these little garden spaces, and some of them are absolutely bare at this point, and have been for 2 summers now. It's a disgrace. But maybe I have to push on the mayor.
But I mean, you'd like something in the fall, I guess, because summer is over now.
Well, no, she's saying that just in the summer, and
Okay.
not just this summer, but the past one as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
You've
what?
noticed it, I guess, Kevin.
Oh no, I was just repeating what I had heard you say.
But
So what Eric who?
Eric Roberts, the young man that used to wear the cowboy hat downtown and
Oh, okay.
do all the work, but he's taken off the hat so nobody notices him
Ah, there
anymore.
we go. All
And
right.
he's hardly there. He's taking care of everything that the garden club planted, watered
Yeah.
nicely. He's
Okay.
switching down on in Neowa Park. They're switching over. They're going to take out even the lilies that are around the lights to make it easier for the park to take care of that veterans walkway.
Right.
So they can mow right up to everything. It just angers me that if these parks department people, if it doesn't make a noise, they can't do it. They can't use their hands to pull weeds in there. And he's been doing it. He's done a good job, but now they're letting the weeds grow and they're going to mow off the lilies this coming and mow right up to the lights there were bushes there at one time.
Right. No, I remember that conversation from before. One thing that, again, it's going to take money, and I guess it should have gone into this budget cycle, but something that we might want to think about.
Well, there's money for the plantings along Main Street.
Right. And so
small bushes and things.
So one thing, when I was in high school, I had there was a program in the park district that I worked in, where you could get people starting at, I think 12, 13 or something like that, had special ability to be able to work summers for just like 4 hours a day or something like that. And then after I did that, when I was 16, I graduated to full-time summer work with the park district, where we did a lot of planting, we did a lot of weeding, we went through all the stuff. It was, it required an adult supervisor that the park district hired, who was also part-time in the summer. Poor guy, he was a Catholic school teacher looking to get away from having to oversee kids, and they just put him back on with that. But that it occurred to me that is a really great way for kids to be able to get a little bit of money even before they're of working age. It beats working inside, especially in the summertime. I liked it a lot, but it would also maybe get to this idea of being able to have a little bit more hands to do some of this weeding and planting and stuff like that. And so it might be something. I'm not sure how we might get I guess like we could talk to I could talk to the Parks and Rec people and see about that.
I was going to their meetings and they moved their meeting till 6 o'clock. I could go again. Actually, we're eating earlier, but 6 was when we were eating. They moved it up from 7 to 6.
Right.
So that I guess their people have late dinner. Anyway, Eric has had an assistant for summers in the past, but I saw him twice this summer without an assistant. The budget is,
I know it's a tough one, but that's also the nice thing about trying to hire 14-year-olds is that it's not quite the same overhead. But I had talked to George before he left a little bit about that, and he seemed like think that was an interesting idea. And the funny thing is he knew my boss.
He what?
He knew my boss back then.
Oh, really?
The superintendent of the Arlington Heights Park District. George was like, "Oh yeah, I knew him."
Really?
Yeah, he had the same impression I did, which was not always the best one. But all right, so that's a good point though. So we'll I think I'll talk to somebody at Parks, I guess, and float that idea by them and see if we can figure out a way of getting trying to stretch our budget money a little bit further and try to get some of those planters taken care of.
I know I can't think of their chairman now, but yeah, they have property up at Crumhorn Lake at the same we do. I can't think of his name now.
I can't. I think I know who you mean, but I can't pull it out either.
All right. So moving on then, community engagement. I haven't been able to get out and work on the Green Star project in a while. A lot of other stuff has kind of fallen by the wayside. Last time we met, I believe we talked. There was another knotweed poll, I think, but I haven't heard about anything.
Well, yeah, Steve, I don't know. Yeah, these were the uh, Elizabeth Brown and I can't,
Rachel, no, not
the two of them helped, and Peter Friedman helped, and I helped, and Steve did. Yeah, and I think the best way to think of the knotweed is
Virginia.
cut it back several times a year. And I've been told that if you cut it back many times during the year, eventually after 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, the roots will give up, but they don't give up easily. So, but that's all been volunteer. And Steve Ludner, the husband of Kim Noling, has been doing that and got permission from the city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So that's been very successful.
So where did you do this? On the Greenway?
No. This was in Oneonta Creek, starting from the lower bridge, which is kind of like a Center Street, kind of like, and we're going upstream to near the high school, and all of that is now pretty well clean from beginning knotweed. Okay.
Oh, good.
Beginning, am I right with my term? Yeah, knotweed is the correct term. Yeah.
Yes.
Then you go north of the high school on Oneonta Creek, past the football field there, and there's more in there. And you go beyond that up towards the development to the north, and there's tons of it up there.
Yeah.
I decided, hey, we can't do it all.
Right.
So, I think we're going to kind of stick maybe from the bridge just below the high school all the way down to as far as we're finding it. But Steve's been very good on it.
Great.
Dave,
So we go
are
back
they-
another time. Pardon?
Are they pulling it up or are you cutting it? The only reason I ask is because it does vegetatively reproduce. And so if you pull it,
We
you
know
break the
that we
roots.
can't drop any of the roots in the stream.
Okay.
We understand that, and we know there's no place to put it because the green waste place down there won't take it because their attitude is, well, if it's green, it's going to get dry and then it's going to be a fire hazard. I was rejected a bag down there.
Oh,
So, well, and we don't want to put it in the recycled green waste pile.
no.
We've been eating it as a salad every night for,
You
there's
can't
no
eat
other way to
it.
get rid of it.
When
You
it's
gotta eat
when
it.
it's young, you can eat it. It's
Delicious,
in,
yeah. But no,
freeze-
that's what
freeze
they
it.
say. We've tried it. It's not delicious.
no, I'm just teasing. But no, we got a point there where don't tell anybody it's solid waste pile. That's a top.
Well, we finally got rid of it here by our house. I convinced it was in a landscaping booklet way back called Silver Lace or something like that. And they were selling it for people
Yep.
to plant
Yeah,
by
it
their
was
house.
an import from Japan, probably. Yeah.
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 But along the Greenway out by the sewage treatment and so on, somebody's done a wonderful job widening that and cutting it way back.
Really, I've not been
And
that way.
our
for quite a while.
daughter working for the DEC says they've got a bug now that'll attack it.
Oh,
So that I guess they've got to test it out and see it doesn't.
yeah. That doesn't
other
sound.
things too.
That usually sounds like a story there, right? You do this and then you have to get rid of that. so-
Right.
And
And
it
the
does
next one
other damage. Yeah.
goes after maple trees.
All right, so let's get on to the old business, and I'm going to share the letter that I shared with all of you, so that we can hopefully send this along to the legislative committee. I know, Dave, you had said that you had looked at it and said it looked okay to you,
Yep.
and so. This is what I was planning on sending. It's really just Steve Yearley's code that he had after we had had some discussions about it. He listened to what we had to say, and if you notice, he's got a little thing here on the area colony density, something that we had talked about. He's changed up a little bit about just the rather than being so prescriptive as before, restrictive on the bee colonies, is just has to be a structure designed for the purpose of keeping bees and shall be kind of a commonly used one. We got rid of the side yard prohibition, and it just has the front yard and water required on site. And so these are all the things that we had looked at. And he had made the changes, and I shared it with everybody. And I think before people had said that that they were happy with those changes. And so this is the letter that I would like to send and to the legislative committee so that we are done with it. And so before we do that, I'd like to do this all. So does anybody have any other comments on this? And if not, do I hear a motion to?
So moved.
All right. So Gina does that. Do I hear a second to
I'll
approve
second.
this? All right. Dave seconds. All right. All in favor of sending this letter as is with the updated proposed B ordinance to the Legislative Committee of Oneonta, please say aye.
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 Okay. So we have 5 ayes. Just make sure, any noes? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you, everybody. So moved.
Evan, can I make a suggestion?
Oh, yeah, now after we voted, Mark.
No, I'm very happy. This is wonderful. What I would suggest is that at the time that this comes before the legislative committee, that maybe a representative might want to be at that meeting.
Yeah,
to
I
give a little
was
context.
absolutely. What I was going to do is I was going to send this letter and via email, but in the email I would have made that as a request saying, please let us know when this goes up, and we'd be happy to have somebody there. I did include that right in the letter that we'd be happy to answer any questions that they may have. But I was going to add that into that. And when I find out when they're going to put that before the legislative committee, I'll let you all know. So maybe people who are smarter than bees than me can go, but I'll certainly be there as well.
Yeah, their first question is going to be, what's colony collapse disorder?
Well, I mean, come on, even I know that. It's been in the news long enough, and I'm just a physicist. So, all right. Well, this is good. I'm really happy about this. This has been going on since March, which seems like a lifetime ago. No, seriously, somebody that's higher up than me said, "Oh, do you remember? I need this thing that you sent in." I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah, that must have been like a year and a half ago." And I finally dug it up, and it was dated March 20th. I'm like, "Oh, geez." So okay, so yay, we did this. All right. So moving on to I got to find my agenda. Where's my agenda? Here we go. All right. So before we get into the Deet Street loft development, I do want to put some updates on new members. I did reach out to Rachel Kornhauser over at SUNY Oneonta. We had a very lengthy discussion. She was very enthusiastic, but ultimately decided that with a young family that it was just going to be too difficult. So one thing I'd like to see maybe in different days when we can all meet together is to try to think of ways. I did tell her that I was not going to care if there was children in a Zoom room, and if we ever met in person again, when we meet in person again, that I would see no problem of having children in there as well. But it is running up against little ones' bedtimes. But we might want to think about ways of making these sorts of things more conducive to people of all stages of life, especially since we're talking about the environment. We also kind of want to make sure that we're getting people who are younger.
Yeah, I would recommend, and this is just, my opinion. We have a lot of folks that represent the colleges. I think we need somebody from our community to be on. We have folks, I know that, but it just seems like we're heavily education.
We are, and I'm getting to that, Tracy.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I agree with you that is an issue, and I've been trying to think about that. So I also have reached out to Michael Forster Rothbart. Joan had recommended him, and I'm friends with him, and it's a very easy recommendation. He is, I don't know if he's still watching, he'll probably text me. He's on the Greenway Committee, and he is interested in possibly doing that. So hopefully we'll hear from him very, very soon. And so that's somebody that is, he is not quite is not in the professorial thing. So that'd be
Michael,
more of a
could you give me
community.
his last name? Michael.
Forster Rothbart. And then I just
Yeah, I didn't, yeah.
and then I just took a suggestion from Dave, and I reached out to Virginia.
Brown.
Yeah, no.
Oh, Virginia, I can't, David, his last name is David. I can't pull it out. That's her last name, David.
Tomlinson is her name.
Up near you. Pardon?
Yep. Tomlinson.
No, she lives a couple of doors up from you too. David, David, she used to be in the library
Yeah, Highland is his last name.
Thank you. Highland. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, yeah, we got to get that right because she was going to watch too. So, so hopefully, so we have some people there, and I will we're keeping that in mind. So I am trying to make sure that we have community members, not just pulling out of the colleges. So I agree with you 100%, Tracy, on that one. And I'm trying to get as much representation as I can.
And Virginia did express interest in my career.
Yes. No. Yeah. No. I emailed her and she responded very enthusiastically.
Great.
And so hopefully next time we meet, we will have two people will have a full complement on our board once again. But I will keep you guys.
She has a biology background. She is a biologist, and that's not her profession, but she did graduate with a degree in biology, I think.
Yeah, I think she's associated with the Oneonta school system, if I
yes, I believe
correctly.
that's correct. Yeah, which would be good. Yeah.
Yes. So that would be fantastic. So we're making progress. I've been working on it. I've been trying to do this. And Joan had also given me a few other ideas as well. What I would like to do is kind of keep a running list of possibilities. Just it never hurts to have, so we don't have to scramble on that. So anyway, so that's that. I just wanted to kind of keep you all up to date on that. There's not a whole lot of other action to do for that, which brings me to Dave's email that he sent out on Monday, I believe it was, or maybe it was last week, I don't remember, about the Dietz Street loft development. In terms of looking at the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act that New York State just looked at, or just voted on.
That's 2019, I do believe. It was
yes.
2019, yeah.
So I did get to go to most of the meeting yesterday that I had sent you guys a link to.
I went too. I was zoomed in on that for a long time, yeah.
Okay. So I found it to be a pretty interesting conversation that we can, I want to get some notes together on that. But basically where that law seems to be sitting right now is here's the goals that we have that we are going to commit as a state to reaching, but nothing has been put into place yet in terms of how that's going to happen. So right now there's a bunch of working groups that are putting all of these things together. One thing that kind of came out of the buildings group that commercial and residential that I looked at was, again, this idea of there's the energy code. So there's the building code of New York and the energy code of New York, and they're separate but overlapping each other. And we talked about this board has talked about the New York stretch goal, which is a little bit more aggressive changes to the energy code, which would be part of putting out buildings and stuff like that. There have been a few more buy-ins. It's not. I know Ithaca tried to go above and beyond that. There's been a couple of other smaller cities that have done that as fully optional. Right now, there's talk of trying to stop making the stretch code optional and make it the actual code, so that it'd be easier for smaller communities to be a part of, rather than saying, well, if we do this, then there's a danger that other places who don't do it will get more business. But one of the things that they were talking about, and this is a little bit in line with the D Street loft, although I don't think that there's anything that we can do about it since we don't have uh, anything in our codes or in our laws that say this. But one thing that we're going to want to do as a city is to think about doing our code so that we think more about the future. So one of the things that was being talked about at this summary meeting of this working group is the idea that it's not so much right now that we try to build perfect buildings right now, but realize that 80% of the building stock in 2050 will be buildings that were built already prior to that are already in use. And so when we're doing major retrofits or building new buildings, the idea is to actually make sure that there is the capability for having full electrification, the capability of having electric vehicles being charged with that. So maybe it's not that something that you build in just yet, but that you have the capability for adding in air driven
air source
and things like that. So that is something that I think that the smart Clean Cities Task Force should be working on, which is still needs to. I think the epidemic kind of knocked us for a loop on that, and we still have to meet. So those are the kinds of things that are going on. I think it was Steve
Yearly.
Yeah, that wrote you back.
Yep.
Yeah. And so basically it's the same thing is that I think he sees that there is a need for, if we want to do this, that we want to look at changing building codes. One of the things that the energy code, if you go and look at it, it's not very exciting. It focuses more on building envelopes and efficiencies, which is very, very important, obviously. But there's to date very little on actually building out energy sources that are in there. And yeah, there's a reason it takes a long time. I can't believe how many regulations at the federal and state level and local levels that can conflict with one another. It's quite the thing. So that was kind of what I found on where this law is for New York. It's more of a legislative goal to reduce our greenhouse gases, but as yet there's nothing on paper beyond what already exists. And so without that, it seems difficult to try to force anybody to do anything just yet. I'm not entirely sure what this writing a letter, as Dave, you suggested. I think the best thing to do would be to try to write it to the developer, but I don't know what the city can do at this point. And I think what the board should be doing, this board should be doing, is to try to work with the city to make more stringent energy codes. So we might miss this one. I mean, remember, he did want to be like a silver LEED building, a silver level LEED building, I think is what the Deed Street loft was supposed to be. But it's still hung up in lawsuits.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Really?
yeah.
Well, let me just read what Steve Yearly, the last statement. You all have it. I sent it out today. Steve sent, he was great. I sent him an email about 2:00, and by 2:30, he had a nice document coming back to me, and you guys all have it. I also forwarded on to the mayor, so he knows what's kicking around here. Let me just read the last sentence here, if I may. This is from Steve Yearly, our code enforcement office. You can always request that the council enact legislation to exceed New York State Energy Code in our local municipality, or require projects of a certain threshold to adopt an energy plan. But other than that, I'm not aware of any other additional action we can do. So I guess my point being, we can go above what the New York code is. I don't know if we can do that on a specific building, but probably we would want to have the powers that be, the committees that be, code and say, yeah, we want to go a little bit beyond. And let me just throw out a couple of comments here. The stretch was voluntary, but it's sort of the ideal setting that someone follows the stretch, meaning they're stretching the code, going beyond the code, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. As long as a municipality says they want to do it, they're entitled to do that. Locally here, as I look at it, we have two colleges here, a fairly sophisticated community. Do we want to have a building that's being built in 2020 or 2021 that's outdated by maybe 2025? So we've got to get our act together and say, we don't want a building that isn't built so that it can accommodate some of these other things that we're talking about. One of the things that they talked about in the report that you were mentioning, they thought in many cases, solar should be required on the tops of the buildings. So the energy that's required to drive, let's say, air source heat pumps or even ground source heat pumps, i.e. geothermal. We have our own electricity up there to do that. So we have an example here, Eagle Brewery, it's really a supply house now. I think they're talking about having a brewery. I don't think that's happened, but they're out near the Soccer Hall of Fame. There's a big building just a little bit to the east of that. And we were out there when he was building the building, and the builder and the owner, I think, was passed away. But anyhow, we asked him about solar. He said, yeah, I put enough strength in the roof so that we can have solar if we wish. So that's the kind of stuff we got to do. We talked about the buildings that went on at the north end of Maple Street in that development in there. And those guys said, well, we can't do that because we haven't built the roof strong enough in our plans. They had all kinds of reasons not to do it. And I am convinced that most builders need a good kick in the fanny, especially the older ones. Our developer, I asked him, had he done any geothermal or air pumps in the Hudson River Valley? His answer was no. Then I asked if anybody on his staff, and the answer was no. And I said, well, I don't mean to try to tell you how to run your business, but maybe you ought to hire someone that knows geothermal to advise you when you build a new building here in Oneonta. Well, we can get in touch with people if we need them. So he is not interested. A letter to him, you might as well do whatever you want, but it ain't going to do nothing, man. So I think we need to get our act together, and I think we need to push. Steve may be happy to work with us yearly and find out. It would be the Planning Commission. And in his letter, I pointedly asked him, what about the lot? And well, it is tied up in Article 78 because people were complaining. And no, they never submitted any more plans about heating or air conditioning. They never did and haven't yet. So, I mean, the whole thing kind of stinks. Now, I know the mayor thought this would be a wonderful thing to do in the city here. I don't know. Given the COVID, I think a lot of people are leaving the damn city. Maybe we want to think about these lofts being a little higher class, put a nice balcony in them. Forget the loft idea, but maybe approach people that want to get out of New York City and come up here and have a.
Well, I think that's the idea. So, Mark, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, if I could, Dave, I hear you. I certainly have an interest in seeing much more renewable energies, but I guess I'm trying to take a little bit more of a holistic approach in this and look at it from a sustainable standpoint. And here's what I want to say. At this point, the lofts are going to be, silver LEED, which is pretty good. So it means that they're going to be built to a pretty high quality. While they might not have green energy as part of it, they're certainly going to have a lot of other different, insulation and different things kind of part
that's
of
all good,
thinking, which is fantastic. I mean, frankly, that's better than 99% of the buildings that we have here in the city of Oneonta. But if we start to look at it from a sustainable kind of model, one, they're also it's going to be a taxable site, taxable building. And we have in this city, I think it's about 60% of the different properties that are owned within the city are nonprofit, that we can't tax them. So we're pulling together, and we talked about the meager budget that we have. We're pulling that off of 40% of the properties in the city of Oneonta. So the opportunity to have a larger building come in and have it be taxable, and he's going to be paying us for the city, so the parking spots that are being rented in the parking garage. I think that's really important. Then the other thing from this, what we know is that people aren't coming to our city right now because there's just not great housing stock. Our housing stock is run down, it's decrepit, it really needs a lot of work. And so here we have an opportunity to be able to build a new site, LEED silver, downtown, so people are not driving as much, they can live downtown, they can walk. and perhaps bring people into the city. I guess I'm willing, frankly, to compromise on some of the energy, the lack of green energy in this particular site, because the positives are it increases our tax base. We're able to have a high quality building in terms of LEED certified, and we're also able to bring in more people into this area. So to me, those are win-win-wins across the board there.
Okay.
And then last point, I would say, while I agree with you, I think that the strategy should be also to try to work on changing the codes in general, so that we have those codes changed down the road.
Gina? Thank you, Mark.
Just one other quick point. I think I'm unmuted.
Yep.
There are multiple policy alternatives. We might pursue building codes. We might also do something as radical as San Francisco has done, which is no new gas hookups.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of possible support, but probably opposition in this town for that as well. But longer term, again, if it's a new development, not a retrofit, not existing building, but no new gas.
Yeah, that is definitely something that was put around there. So I want to just clarify one thing, Dave, from that meeting. We can change the energy code to a point. There is fewer hurdles. Changing the building code away from the New York State building code is actually a process. You would have to do a lot of demonstration of a lot of things. I personally, I'm for trying to do the stretch code. I think I want to look at things like that. Gina, I do like the idea of any new buildings trying to say no gas, or new buildings should be ready to do heat pumps or something like that. I also agree with Mark that a silver LEED building is nothing to sneeze at. There's nothing else like that in the city. The current building codes, the energy codes that this building would have to be built to, are amazingly efficient. If you look at what needs to be done, these things, any new building in New York State has got to be basically hermetically sealed from the outside. Basically, it seems to be that there's also other ways of making sure that there is no heat or leakage out into the outside. So even with energy, without clean energy, there's going to be less energy use from this building than anything of comparable size in the city right now. And so rather than focus on one building right now, I'd rather put our focus on changing the energy codes. I think if we try to do something that's exceptional right away, then we're going to get the city will get a lot of pushback. I think you'll get, I can imagine countersuits. And so I think it's better to try to work on a full scale thing. The good news is that things are going to be pushed along anyway. By 2025, we're going to see a whole lot of new changes in New York State if we want to make this this new law or actually do something. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'd rather it's not my board, obviously. I think though pushing and working with Steve and others, I think there is a lot of I think we're lucky that the people that are working for the city right now feel the same way that we do in a lot of ways, and would probably be willing to work on doing this. But I want to make sure that we do it the right way. And if we miss a building, and it is a big building to miss out on, I agree.
We're going to have many like it. We're not going to have any more like it in the city. I don't know where they're going to go,
Well, there's that big old gray warehouse. That's got to be developed soon. And anything else that gets built.
But you guys know more about the LEED than I do. But I mean, if it's so tight, you got to have fresh air into a building. We all know that.
Yeah, well, you filter it through there. You use it's
heat pump brings new air in from outside.
Right, they do that, and they have heat exchange. So they bring in if they bring in hot air during the summer, they mix it with the outgoing cold air to try to bring it to temperature, and then vice versa in the winter when they're bringing cold air from the outside, it gets pre-mixed with the outgoing warm air from inside.
But you do want some humidity inside the building. You don't want it so tight. You know, of course, you know that, you know, yeah.
Yeah, no, you put it in there.
It just seems to me that, yeah, the CLCPA, which stands for the Climate, that's the CL, Community Protection Act. CL Leadership, Community Leadership, Community Protection Act. That thing, yeah, we can't ignore it. It's there. And it seems to me so many of the people that were talking in that conference were just trying to figure out ways we can do what the act states we should do. And here we are. And I hear all the stuff you say, and I know the threat, the guy's going to walk away and not come here. And I know the mayor doesn't want that and nobody else does. But it just seems like we got to sit down and say, look, as a community, we want to be doing the right thing for the greenhouse gas, et cetera. And to kind of say, well, let's wait for the next one. I don't know. But anyhow, that's...
Well, I mean, we'll work on it. My point, though, is that I don't know. I mean...
The codes, and no, are we sure it's going to be silver, Mark? Are we sure it's going to be silver lead? I'm not 100% sure I knew that.
Yeah, that's been talked about quite a bit.
But will he in fact do it, or is it talk? I mean, you know, the guy, you know, he I don't know. I don't know. I just think he's older. We all know what that means. And he hasn't done it. And why bother?
No, he's built a silver lead building before, I'm pretty sure.
No. I'd like to throw it out. I mean, I don't know. I've got the motion there. We don't, I mean, I'd like to put it on the table and see what happens to it. If it passes, it passes. All we have the power to do is to request the appropriate committee, which is probably the Planning Commission, to look at whatever I said in the motion there. I didn't write it down directly in front of me, but just to look at it and see if we can't have the developer adjust to, I'd love it, non-fossil fuel, no gas. Then he's got to do solar and got to do air source or ground source. You know, he's got to do it. If he doesn't do, that's what we're talking about. If he doesn't do fossil fuel, he ain't got too many other possibilities. I don't know. I don't know. Why don't I make
Quick,
we can beat it down if we don't want it.
real quick comment.
Mhm.
So LEED, Dave, includes its point-based system. And so for energy, as well as conservation, there are points. So if it has an incentive built into it to adopt cleaner energy, as well as other points that relate to conservation systems, water use, indoor air quality, etc. And I would encourage you to look a little bit more at LEED and again, the different categories. It might be, you know, prohibitive or to require, to the extent you want to compel a developer. And incentives and systems like green building codes that have incentives or process benefits, like you get your permits faster. There are other ways to, again, get developers to go down this path. So I would encourage you to look at the Green Building Council and LEED a little bit more and see how the energy component fits into it. And maybe that's a way to start the conversation also with developers.
Well, I think your ideas are good. And I think I might say, according to what Steve Yearley sent out this afternoon, you may not all have had time to read it, but he said they have not come forth with any heating, air conditioning, ventilation plans at all. And to me, now is the time to say, maybe what you're saying, you've got to accommodate that in the future. But I mean, I think to accommodate that, you might as well do it. I mean, if you're going to have the facility, I don't know, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer. I mean, if you have the piping that's necessary and the ductwork that's necessary, that's when you want to do it, is when you're building the building. And I don't know how you're going to put that stuff in the building. If you're going to do it, you might as well move forth and do the air source or the ground source. I don't know. And I would think one component that might be the easiest of all is to tell him to have roof that's going to be strong enough to accommodate solar panels. And that's when you want to do that. You know, he's going to come back and say, oh, sorry, we didn't put that in the plans and we can't do solar. And apparently nobody else can either. I don't know enough about solar, but apparently you have to plan ahead for the roof. For that.
So
Go ahead.
So to be perfectly clear here, looking at Stephen's email, no detailed construction designs have been submitted
Correct.
at all. And the developer has
encourage him before he does any. We want to encourage him to include what we're talking about rather than wait till after the fact. He has not submitted that. We don't know what he's going to do for the.
But okay, so here's the thing though. So hold on.
Yeah, should we read through it?
No, here, just one second. Sorry that this looks all weird. Zoom is not always nice. So here is the motion that Dave sent.
So it'd be the planning committee, probably. I thought it was.
So the issue that I have with this is that there is nothing on the books that would allow the developer, the code committee or whatever that is that we're talking about, to actually compel this builder to do anything.
Well, reconsider is in there, the heating cooling system to make them energy efficient as is reasonably possible and be in compliance with CLCPA, which there are no real specs for the CLCPA, I don't think, anyhow.
There's nothing. So that is right now, there is nothing we can use in that legislation to compel anybody to do it.
No, I agree. We can't compel it. And we're asking, I mean, at least it is a law. The state did.
And I would want to look at this a little bit more in detail, asking from Stephen, just because there are two things that are here. Stephen says, to date, the Planning Commission has approved the site plan.
Yep.
So that site plan has already been approved.
Correct.
In the two paragraphs above that, the city is only engaged in site plan review through the Planning Commission. There were no detailed construction designs submitted, including those related to building mechanicals. That requirement was waived as part of the review process.
I know, and I don't understand why, but that's what happens.
So my point is that I'm not. Where do we?
Well, we're asking the Planning Commission.
But they've already given. They've already.
Well, they can. Well, and then yeah, I understand that, but we're asking the developer to reconsider. And to be honest with you, it doesn't like he hasn't made a solid plan for the heating cooling system. He hasn't done that as of today. The city hasn't gotten that as today. How long has he been talking about this thing? A year? I don't know. But he has not moved forth on stuff that we. He does. Let's get him to move. Let's get him to think about this stuff.
Well, I'm not even sure that he's doing anything right now because he might give up after this lawsuit. He only has the option to purchase. I don't think that land has been purchased yet. Is that?
Apparently not. I didn't know till today. Yeah. I thought the city did sell it to him, but I guess not. I did not know that. Well, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but the state did pass this law. And it's not saying it's got any teeth to it. I agree with you. There are no teeth to it. But we're asking this guy, we are interested in it. We're supporting it. Let's have this be a building that is not going to be out of date in 10 years, 5 years. Let's build it as it should be built today, according to what the state has said. And I don't think it's obnoxious. I mean, we're kind of asking him to reconsider the heating cooling system with a goal of me. He didn't even pass it yet. I guess reconsider when you give us a heating system. So we're not the guy, maybe he should get a professional to look at it and say, this would be bad. He hasn't done it. He doesn't.
Well, we don't know. And I guess I'm,
no, Mark and you guys know more about the lead, the silver lead. That's wonderful. And maybe I should just forget about it.
well, I'm not saying that. I think it's an incredibly important thing to do. I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is what is the best way for this board to try to get what they want. Does anybody else have any other ideas? And Dave, at some point you are free to forward the motion for this, and we can get a second, and we can put a vote if you would like. But I would like to hear from other members of the board if there
Or modify the motion if there's any way you want to modify. I mean, I just want to get us thinking about it as a city. And maybe we are, and I'm not aware of it. I don't know. Maybe we are, and I'm not. The lead stuff is great, but gosh, it would seem like everybody would be doing insulation these days.
Well, the silver lead goes a little bit beyond that, so it is a point-based system. I haven't looked at the points just yet.
Well, why don't we let it sit for our next meeting and people can think about it? And, it doesn't have to go up now. The mayor, I sent this to him and he's aware of it. And maybe, I'm sure he probably has comments. I do not think he wants to do anything to have the developer run away.
Okay, so, all right. So let's put this off and have this as a discussion for next week, next month rather. May I make I'm sorry, is somebody saying something? Or is that just an echo?
Can I?
Yes, please,
Can
Lucille.
you tell us what, or print out, send us what a silver lead includes?
I will do my best to.
I think you talked through it, but maybe
Yeah, it's a little bit hidden behind things. So I will do my best. Tracy or Gina, do you have experience with these sorts of things?
The Green Building Council has the descriptions.
Green Building Council? Okay.
.org.
So I will.
And I think for certain that being that it's a silver lead building, that it would in fact have, even though we may not know it, it would have considerations for the HVAC system built into it. It would have to. I mean, that's such an important component of, heating and energy for any building nowadays. To be silver, it would have to be built in. And so I think that Lucille is absolutely correct. I think that we should understand exactly what it is that the silver gives us. And
Right.
Dave, it might actually cover the things that you're looking to, it might, so, but I don't think that, and I don't think that if the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, if it doesn't have any teeth, I don't think it's really a good idea for us to be in compliance with something that doesn't have.
Well, you got a point. Yeah, but maybe the word compliance is too strong, but in support of, we could.
In the spirit of.
In the spirit of CLCPA at the moment. I mean, down the road, this thing's going to have some stuff. It's still getting worked out. So that is kind of what I was going to say was I would ask to do some homework on what the silver lead looks like. Lucille, and everybody, I'll also look at the Green Building Council and try to pull together some things. One thing that I'll try to do, maybe if you guys, some of you others that have a little bit more experience with this can help out too. Maybe I think it's got to get within 59 and 63 points or something like that. If we can kind of maybe come up ourselves with ways to get to the silver lead as examples, and then we can share that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd love to get more information. If people dig that out, shoot it around to the group here.
Yeah, so we'll do that. I have some time next week finally.
Maybe I'll ask. I do know somebody that is an expert in this and that potentially could speak to us. So
Danny Lappin may be good with it. I don't know. Mark knows a lot about it.
Folks, a couple quick things.
Yes, Gina.
The New York Dorm Authority requires silver lead on retrofits and new dorms. We have achieve silver lead in our projects on campus. Part of how we've done that is no air conditioning, for example. Rachel Kornhauser has some expertise here. As Tracy mentioned, we have a faculty member teaching that is a specialty in this as well. But I wanted to also add the climate partnership, the Climate Act does include a whole building section and I looked up real quick, a buildings roadmap. There are planners working on this, and we might visit and again leverage what the state is doing if we want to hook our wagon to that act.
Right. So
in the meetings that we both went to yesterday virtually, that's number 3 or number 4 that this group has had, and they're all gearing it because of the CLCPA. That whole thing is based on that act that the assembly passed.
Right, and so because
all in the mix.
Right. Well, the CLCPA is basically just saying that the state is going to do this. Now, what's going in is how are you going to go about doing it? That's what all these other group meetings are.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so I think that this is a good conversation. I think it ties into things that we've been talking about for the past year. I remember last year we started looking at the stretch code, and we looked at Ithaca and what they were doing. And I think that this is really the next step, along with some of the transportation things that Gina was talking about. So I think that that's what we'll do is we'll take a look at what this silver lead looks like. I will get in. So anybody that knows anything about this, Gina, Tracy, I'd appreciate your help reaching out to folks. That would be great. I will also talk and see what sort of processes, where this building, try to get a little bit better idea where this Deet Street loft is and what some of the things that Stephen had written, what those mean, and particularly the idea of the waiver and the site code, and try to get a little bit more information and before we can go and do everything. So does that sound like a plan for next time?
It wouldn't, let me show this out and I'll keep my big mouth shut. This is the kind of thing that maybe if we had an expert that knows a lot more about it than any of us, they could come to the next meeting and open the meeting up to the public and let the public hear about it. So it's becoming more of a thing that the people of the city of Oneonta are interested in and involved in, et cetera. I mean, that's one of the things to do is educate.
A moment,
and I keep just harking back to the old wood burning plant.
Right.
3 sessions open to the public. They came, they learned, and it was a really learning experience for the whole city.
Yes, and just so you know, these are live, and so the public is available to.
I know, but promote it and let them know more than just a notice in the Daily Star or something. But there are ways of doing it that there was a group pushing it outside of our board that really kind of forced us to do stuff too, which that group doesn't seem to. Well, there are little groups out there that want this, but they're not consolidated.
Right, and that comes back to another conversation that we had a while back that I want to get back to one of these days, which is to try to use social media to be able to get some of this stuff out there in a little bit more way. But right now, having our board being so small at the moment, I'm I'm focusing a lot on trying to get us back up to our full complement, and when we do that, maybe this will be a little bit easier. But so we have some stuff to do. I will try to send out some things in the next couple of days, probably next week. Tracy, Gina, anybody beats me to it, fantastic. I think we can also think about having somebody maybe coming in and giving a little presentation about what the different lead
Good idea.
Steps are. If we can get somebody, if we can identify somebody that'd be willing to do that and give us 20 minutes of their time, that would be fantastic. So with that, I think, is there anything else?
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. Hopefully next time we'll have a few more people here. Thank you, Dave, for keeping this up in the forefront. It does tie in nicely with things that we've been doing. And I think this is exactly what the environmental board should be doing, trying to push the city to to be as energy efficient and conscious as we can. That's why we're the environmental board.
Right.
So thank you, everybody.
Sorry.
I'll call this meeting at concluded at 8:39.
Whoop-whoop.
Stay well.
Stay well, everybody.
You.
Keep the mask on. Right?
Yes, mask. Cover up all the face holes except for the ears.
Not the eyes. Come on.
Only when driving, and close the eyes when you're